If you've ever wished debugging in Studio was faster or that AI could help you without needing to change your development environment, then this video is for you. We're going to be locally installing an open source MCP server and running Codex and Claude from the terminal so you have access to all the benefits of these AI agents without needing to port your Studio project to VS Code and Rojo. This will only work if you got a subscription to either Claude or ChatGPT. And before we jump in, today's video is sponsored by Brilliant. Because if you want to get even better with the math, logic, and AI concepts behind these AI tools, they've got something perfect for you. Brilliant has thousands of interactive lessons across math, science, programming, data analysis, and artificial intelligence. Everything is bite-sized and hands-on, so you actually understand what's happening instead of memorizing formulas. For Roblox developers, Brilliant teaches the core math, logic, and algorithms that can help level up your engineering skills and help you write cleaner, more efficient systems. Brilliant's course on how AI works breaks down large language models in a way that's easy to visualize. You'll see how neural networks process tokens, adjust weights, and generate responses, so you understand why AI agents behave the way they do when helping you debug or write code. Brilliant also keeps you consistent with streaks and curated daily challenges that fit perfectly into your downtime, like when Studio crashes. To start learning for free, scan the QR code on screen or head to brilliant.org/crusherfire. Using that link gives you 20% off an annual premium subscription, which unlocks unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. The first step is going to be installing Node.js and NPM, which is the Node Package Manager. That way we can install everything else we need in this video. The link will be in the description so you can go and download this installer and make sure you have NPM selected at the end. And we're also going to need to install Git if you don't have it installed already. Link will also be in the description. I'm going to hit download for Windows. There's going to be a Git for Windows. There's going to be a setup file, so we're going to download that. And there we go. Git has been installed. I don't want to view the release notes, so we're just going to finish. And now in the Microsoft Store, we're going to be installing this fancy Windows terminal, which can have its theme customized, so it's a bit nicer to use when you're chatting with your AI agents. So install that terminal, and then once you have it installed, you can open it. And to access those settings I was talking about, you can hit this drop-down menu. There's a little setting option here that'll open a new window. And then we can go to the default profile. And there's some stuff you can change in here, like the appearance. So you can change the color theme, which is pretty cool, depending on what kind of color you like. I like the dark plus. You can also change the font face and the font size, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Tweak it to how you want it to look. And you can save those changes. And basically what we want to do inside of this terminal window is we want to verify that Node, NPM, and Git have been successfully installed. So the easiest way to do that is we can type in some commands. First one's node-v. We're going to do npm-v, should also print us a version, and then finally git-v. There we go. All of the versions have printed, which means they're all successfully installed. So we're good to go. Now we're ready to install the AI agent of our choice. I'm going to be installing both Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex, but you're going to want to install the one that you have a paid plan for. For Claude Code, you're going to see different options here, but we want to install it through NPM, so we're going to copy this command. And back inside our terminal window, we can paste this command to install Claude Code, and we're going to do globally, so that way we can run the Claude command from any directory on our computer. We're going to hit enter, and now Claude Code should be installed, and to verify that, we can just type Claude-v to get the version. And there we go, Claude Code has been installed. And for OpenAI's Codex, they also have a command through NPM that we're going to copy. And we just paste that command inside of the terminal, hit enter, it's going to install it. And we can verify that it's been installed. I mean, I already have it installed, so it says it only changed one package. But we can verify it's been installed by typing codex --version. And there we go, Codex command line interface has been installed. So now that we have our agents installed, the next step is to head to this GitHub repository for the MCP server. Link is in the description. We're gonna go to this code button here and open this drop-down menu, and we're gonna wanna copy this URL right here. So we're gonna hit copy. And then we need to pick a directory on our computer where we want to clone this GitHub repository. You can do this wherever you want. I'm going to do it on my G drive, and I'm just going to do it directly in here. So when we copy the repository, it'll make a new folder inside of the G drive, and that's what we want to do. So we can right click here, and there's going to be a button to open this in the terminal. Now, if you don't see this option here, then you can just go to the top, copy the address, and then back inside of our terminal, we're going to use the change directory command, or CD. I'm going to put a string in here and paste our directory between that string, and we're going to hit enter. And you can see now we are located inside of that directory. And now we're going to want to run the git clone command, and we want to paste that URL we copied earlier. And this is going to make a new folder inside of my G drive. So I'm going to hit enter. It's cloning this GitHub repository, and it's already done. So if we take a look in the file directory, there's a new folder, robloxstudio-mcp, and it's a clone of the directory that we saw right here in GitHub. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to go into this directory from our command line. So we're going to run the change directory command again, and we're just going to type out the name robloxstudio-mcp. And now the next thing we need to do is install all of the dependencies for this MCP server, because right now we've only got some of the ingredients for this server to work. There's going to be a file in here called package.json. And inside of this file, it's going to define the different dependencies that this MCP server needs to work. And we need to run a command to look through these dependencies and install them inside of this folder. So to do that, because we are in this directory, we can run the command npm node package manager install. And that command is going to look at that package.json file, and it's going to install all of these dependencies, and it's done. So if we look inside of this file directory, we should have a new folder right there, node modules, and that has installed all of the dependencies we need. Now we're still not done, because right now this repository is just a bunch of raw ingredients. We want to have a cake. So in order to bake the cake, we need to execute a command, which is npm run build. And once that command's done, you're going to see a new folder shows up called DIST, or this technically stands for distribution. This is our baked cake. This is all of the stuff bundled together so we have a program that can run. So now we should be able to run the command npm start. And look at that, our program is running. We have a new MCP server listening on localhost port 3002. The MCP server marked as active, and it's waiting for the Studio plugin to connect. Awesome. Now this isn't very useful at the moment because we need our AI agents to use this MCP server. So we need to run some extra commands. We can hit Control and C to stop this MCP server from running. And now we can add this MCP server to Claude using the following command. We're going to do Claude MCP add. We need to add this transport standard input output. This basically tells Claude, hey, we want to start the MCP server as a background process, and you're going to communicate with it using standard input output. Afterwards, we need to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Roblox Studio, but you can name it whatever you want. And then we need to add another separator, and we need to give Claude a command so it knows how to run this program that's locally installed. So we're going to use node, and then we need to give it a path to the index.js file, and that's basically the entry point into this built program. So we need to specify this path. So from within this Roblox Studio MCP server, we can run the command node, and the path is very simple. That's just going to be distribution/index.js. And when we hit enter, it's going to add that MCP server, and it gave it the command. So we want to run node, access the index.js file, and that's going to execute and run the MCP server. And now we can verify by doing Claude MCP list. And as you can see right there, checking MCP server health. There we go. There's our MCP server. Now this MCP server for Claude is specifically scoped to this file directory. So if you open Claude somewhere else in a different file directory, it's not going to run the MCP server, which is pretty cool. Codex doesn't have that option. It's just you add the MCP server, and anytime you run Codex, it's just going to run the MCP server in the background, which kind of sucks, but it's whatever. It's going to be a similar command. We're going to type Codex MCP add. We're going to give it the name, so we're also going to call it Roblox Studio. And then we also need to add that separator and give Codex the command we want to run, which is node distribution/index.js. So we can hit enter, and there we go. It added a global MCP server. And then we can also verify this with Codex MCP list. And there we go, our MCP server. So let's actually quickly verify that this is working. I'm going to run the Claude command, and this should open up Claude for me. Yes, I want to have dark mode. Ooh, it's actually asking me to log in. I think it's because I restarted. So yes, when you start up Claude, it's going to ask you to sign into your Claude account, which I'm going to do here. Alrighty, and after signing in, it's going to ask you if you trust the files in this folder. I'm going to say yes, proceed, and now we are inside of Claude Code. And to make sure the MCP server is running, there's a command we can run, which is /MCP. I'm going to hit enter, and there we go. Look at that. Roblox Studio connected. This MCP server is running. Awesome. I'm going to escape and exit out of Claude Code because now we need to do the same thing for Codex. We need to run the Codex command. We're going to be inside of here, and there's also going to be a command /MCP. I'm going to see, there we go, Roblox Studio status enabled. Awesome. Here is our MCP server for both Claude and Codex. Now the last and final step is to install the MCP Server Studio plugin. So if we go to the release, there's going to be an MCP plugin.rbxmx file, and we want to download this. And now back inside of Studio, we can head up to the plugin section on the top, and we want to open the plugins folder. And inside of here is where you're going to drag and drop that MCP Server plugin. I already have one installed here, Roblox MCP Server.rbxmx. So you're going to drag and drop that plugin into this file directory. And then once it's in here, you're going to want to restart Studio. And then once you're back inside of Studio, if you head to the plugins tab, there's going to be an icon that says MCP Server. This is the MCP server. So if you open that up, it's trying to connect right now, but you can see that we're going to be listening to the localhost port 3002, which is what the MCP server runs on by default. Currently we're disconnected, so we need to start up the MCP server and then try to connect to it. So I'm going to run the Claude command. We're going to open up Claude Code. We're going to verify this MCP server is running, which it is. We're going to escape, exit out of that. And now we're going to hit connect inside of Studio. And there we go. It should say connected, HTTP OK, MCP OK. Now we should be able to ask Claude a question such as, can you see the contents of the current Studio project? And while you're using this MCP server, Claude's going to ask you for some permissions. So it's going to use the get place info command to get information about your current project. So yes, I'm okay with it using this command. It doesn't need to ask me again. And that's going to be a configuration that gets stored locally inside of the Roblox Studio MCP file directory. So we're going to hit yes. It wants to get the project structure. So yes, I'm okay with that. And there we go. It says, yes, I can see your Roblox Studio project. You have free code resources currently open. With the place ID, here's what I can see in your current project. We got workspace with 8 children, server script service, 2 children, server storage, blah, 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 blah. I can help you with various tasks like viewing and exploring all this garbage. So congratulations, you now have Claude Code and Codex hooked directly into Studio through an MCP server. Obviously, you can't run the MCP server on both models at the same time. You see, I got an error here. So basically, you'd probably swap back and forth between them if you're paying for both Codex and Claude, if you ever hit any limits. And I'd highly recommend supporting the development of this open source MCP server so it can be further optimized and refined. Otherwise, that's all I have for you in this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, and I will see you in the next one.